Are we sleepwalking into another global conflict? A conflict that could engulf nations and redefine the very fabric of our existence? The question looms large, casting a shadow over our collective future. The question is no longer hypothetical, it's a real and present danger. It's a threat that demands our immediate attention, our unwavering focus, and a commitment to understanding the complex forces at play. We can no longer afford to ignore the warning signs. Headlines warn of crises converging, a confluence of events that threatens to destabilize the world order. Each headline screams of escalating tensions, unresolved conflicts, and a growing sense of unease. War in Ukraine, a brutal and devastating conflict that has shattered the peace in Europe and sent shockwaves across the globe. The human cost is immeasurable, and the geopolitical implications are far-reaching. Tensions in the Taiwan Strait, a flashpoint that could ignite a wider conflict between major world powers. The stakes are incredibly high, and the potential for miscalculation is ever present. In a world divided by old rivalries and new fault lines, nations are increasingly polarized, trust is eroding, and the spirit of cooperation seems to be fading away. The language of diplomacy is fading, replaced by a more assertive and confrontational tone. Dialogue is breaking down, and the space for peaceful resolution is shrinking, replaced by confrontation and military posturing. Nations are flexing their muscles, engaging in saber-rattling and signaling their willingness to use force. Today's potential war would span land, sea, air, a multi-domain conflict that would involve all branches of the armed forces. The battlefield would be vast and complex, stretching across continents and oceans. Cyberspace, a new and increasingly important domain of warfare. Cyber attacks can cripple critical infrastructure, disrupt economies, and sow chaos and confusion. And even outer space, where satellites are vulnerable to attack and new weapon systems are being developed. The militarization of space poses a grave threat to global security, with hypersonic missiles and autonomous drones changing the rules. These advanced weapon systems are blurring the lines between offense and defense, and they are making it more difficult to deter aggression. Our globalized society, a complex web of interconnected economies, cultures, and societies. This interconnectedness has brought many benefits, but it has also created new vulnerabilities. Supply chains, financial systems, the lifeblood of the modern world. These systems are now potential targets in a new era of economic warfare, has become a potential battleground. Economic sanctions, trade wars, and cyber attacks can be used to cripple economies and undermine political stability. The post-World War II order is under siege, challenged by rising powers and undermined by a lack of consensus. The principles of multilateralism and international law are being eroded, and the institutions built to maintain peace are straining. The United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and other international bodies are struggling to cope with the challenges of a rapidly changing world. The stakes have never been higher. The decisions we make today will determine the fate of our world for generations to come. We must look at the facts, understand the forces at play, analyze the geopolitical landscape, and assess the risks and opportunities that lie ahead, and ask, what is happening to our world? What are the underlying causes of these escalating tensions, and what can we do to prevent a global catastrophe? Are we prepared for the consequences of a major global conflict? Do we have the resources, the strategies, and the political will to respond effectively if the fragile peace finally shatters? What will be the human cost, the economic impact, and the long-term consequences for our planet? The warning signs are clear, unmistakable, and increasingly urgent. We cannot afford to ignore them any longer, and the time to pay attention is now. The future of our world depends on our ability to understand the challenges we face and to work together to find solutions. Where are we heading? And more importantly, can we change direction before it's too late? The war in Ukraine, a devastating conflict that has reshaped the geopolitical landscape, continues to rage. It's a war marked by immense human suffering, widespread destruction, and a profound sense of uncertainty about the future. The echoes of explosions and the cries of the displaced serve as a constant reminder of the brutal reality on the ground. This war is now the epicenter, the focal point of global tensions, drawing in major powers and alliances. All eyes are on Ukraine, as the decisions made and actions taken here will have far-reaching consequences for the entire world. The stability of the international order hangs in the balance. It's the epicenter of a dangerous standoff, a high-stakes confrontation between Russia and the West, a clash of ideologies and strategic interests that threatens to spiral out of control. The diplomatic channels are strained, and the risk of miscalculation looms large. Russia views NATO's eastward expansion, the steady encroachment of the alliance towards its borders, as an existential threat, a direct challenge to its security and sphere of influence. This perception fuels its actions and shapes its strategic calculations. Russia sees NATO expansion as a deliberate attempt to weaken and isolate it on the world stage. Meanwhile, NATO has rediscovered its purpose, finding renewed unity and resolve in the face of Russian aggression. The alliance is reaffirming its commitment to collective defense and demonstrating its willingness to stand up to any threat to its members' security. NATO is pouring billions into Ukraine's defense, providing crucial military aid and financial assistance to help the country resist Russian forces. This support is vital for Ukraine's survival and its ability to defend its sovereignty. The conflict has inadvertently become a proving ground for Western weaponry, a real-world test of the effectiveness and capabilities of advanced military technology. It's also a critical test of NATO's resolve, a demonstration of its commitment to its values and its willingness to defend its allies against aggression. The alliance's credibility is on the line. Russian officials, including Putin himself, have repeatedly brandished nuclear threats, raising the specter of nuclear war and injecting a dangerous level of uncertainty into the situation. These threats are designed to deter Western intervention and to intimidate Ukraine into submission. The West, in turn, warns of catastrophic consequences, making it clear that any use of nuclear weapons would be met with a swift and decisive response. They are drawing a firm red line, hoping to deter Russia from crossing the threshold and unleashing a nuclear holocaust. This dangerous nuclear brinkmanship, this delicate dance on the edge of Armageddon, has revived Cold War fears, bringing back memories of a time when the world lived under the constant threat of nuclear annihilation. Along NATO's eastern flank, the front line of this new Cold War, thousands of troops and advanced defenses have been deployed, bolstering the alliance's ability to deter Russian aggression and defend its members. Frequent war games are signaling readiness, sending a clear message to Moscow that NATO is prepared to defend its territory and its allies. The border between NATO and Russia is now one of the world's most heavily militarized regions, a tense and volatile frontier where any misstep could have catastrophic consequences. Every move is a calculated risk, a carefully considered decision with potentially far-reaching implications. A single miscalculation, a misinterpreted signal could trigger a wider war, drawing in more countries and escalating the conflict to unimaginable levels. The world watches with bated breath, hoping the tripwire, the delicate balance of power, is never tripped, and that diplomacy and reason can prevail. The stakes could not be higher, as the future of global security hangs in the balance. Taiwan, a vibrant democracy, a beacon of freedom in East Asia, stands as a testament to self-determination and democratic values. Its bustling cities, thriving economy, and open society offer a stark contrast to its powerful neighbor. The island nation has carved its own path, embracing a political system that prioritizes the voice of its people and upholds fundamental rights. Yet this flourishing democracy lives under the constant shadow and threat of reunification by force from China, which views Taiwan as a renegade province. This looming threat casts a long shadow over the island, impacting its security, economy, and the daily lives of its citizens. The possibility of military action is a constant concern, shaping Taiwan's strategic calculations and international relations. Under Xi Jinping, Beijing's rhetoric and military pressure have intensified significantly. The Chinese leader has repeatedly emphasized the inevitability of reunification, leaving little room for compromise or negotiation. This assertive stance has fueled tensions across the Taiwan Strait and raised concerns among regional and international actors. The pressure manifests in various forms, with daily incursions by warplanes into Taiwan's air defense identification zone becoming increasingly common. These provocative actions serve as a constant reminder of China's military capabilities and its willingness to assert its claims over the island. China also conducts frequent naval encirclement drills around Taiwan, simulating potential blockade scenarios and demonstrating its ability to isolate the island. These exercises are designed to intimidate Taiwan and send a message to the international community about China's resolve. These displays of military might are not just shows of force, they are carefully calculated demonstrations of power. They're increasingly viewed as rehearsals for a potential invasion, with the Chinese military honing its capabilities for amphibious landings and urban warfare. These exercises serve as a way of testing Taiwan's defenses and resolve, probing for weaknesses and gauging the island's ability to withstand a potential attack. Taiwan is actively working to bolster its defenses, investing in advanced weaponry and strengthening its military capabilities. The US maintains a policy of strategic ambiguity regarding its response to a potential Chinese attack on Taiwan. However, recent statements from US officials hint at a stronger commitment to Taiwan's defense, signaling a potential shift in policy. This evolving stance reflects growing concerns about China's assertiveness and the importance of maintaining stability in the region. Advanced weapons sales to Taiwan are a key component of this strategy, providing the island with the means to deter aggression and defend itself. Furthermore, the US Navy conducts regular freedom of navigation operations in the Taiwan Strait, asserting its right to operate in international waters. These operations challenge China's expansive territorial claims and assert the principles of international law, underscoring the US commitment to maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific region. A conflict over Taiwan would have catastrophic consequences, devastating the global economy and disrupting international trade flows. It would halt semiconductor production, crippling industries worldwide that rely on these essential components. The disruption would trigger worldwide supply chain chaos, leading to shortages, inflation, and economic instability. Given these high stakes, the Taiwan Strait is now frequently called the most dangerous place on Earth. Here, the futures of technology, innovation, and economic progress are all at risk. The stability of global trade, the flow of goods and services across borders, hangs precariously in the balance. And ultimately, global peace, the delicate framework of international relations, is threatened by the potential for conflict. The world holds its breath, hoping that deterrence prevails, that diplomacy can avert disaster, and that a peaceful resolution can be found. The stakes are undeniably global, not just regional. A conflict in the Taiwan Strait would have far-reaching consequences for all nations. The next move, the next decision made by leaders in Beijing, Taipei, and Washington, could change everything, altering the course of history. Will peace hold? Will dialogue and diplomacy triumph over aggression and coercion? Or will the storm break, unleashing a conflict that could reshape the world order? The answer remains uncertain, hanging heavy in the air. The Middle East's most explosive rivalry is the shadow war between Iran and Israel. This is a sprawling conflict fought through proxies, cyber attacks, and direct strikes. Israel sees Iran's nuclear ambitions and regional militias as existential threats. Iran views Israel as an illegitimate state and U.S. outpost. Iran arms its allies to strike at Israel and U.S. interests, projecting power without direct confrontation. Recent missile and drone exchanges have pushed the conflict into the open, risking a wider regional war. The U.S. would almost certainly be drawn in, and vital shipping lanes could become war zones, threatening global energy supplies. A single miscalculation could ignite a regional conflagration with disastrous global consequences. The world watches a tinderbox, hoping it doesn't ignite. As old tensions flare, new alliances are reshaping the global order. The expanded BRICS group, now including Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Egypt, challenges the Western-dominated G7, representing a huge share of global population and resources. Their goal: reduce dependence on the US dollar and build a multipolar world. De-dollarization and new payment systems threaten American economic leverage. This realignment is as political as it is economic, with Russia and China promoting a vision of sovereignty and non-interference. Many in the global south are drawn to this alternative, resisting pressure to pick sides in great power rivalries. The US and its allies now face a fragmented, competitive world where their influence is no longer guaranteed. The world is fracturing into spheres of influence, making global cooperation harder. Diplomatic norms are eroding, and the risk of miscalculation is rising. The international landscape has never been more unpredictable. A new arms race is underway, driven by hypersonic missiles and artificial intelligence. Hypersonic weapons, maneuverable and nearly impossible to intercept, are being developed by Russia, China, and the US, creating new strategic instability. The nation that masters these technologies gains a first strike advantage. AI is fueling autonomous weapons, drones and vehicles that can identify and attack targets without human input. Critics warn of a future where machines make life or death decisions, raising profound ethical questions. Defense budgets are soaring as nations modernize arsenals at a pace unseen since the Cold War. The proliferation of advanced weapons and cyber tools lowers the threshold for conflict. Decision-making time shrinks, increasing the risk of preemptive strikes based on faulty intelligence. The world is more heavily armed and less stable than ever before. the tools of war are evolving faster than our ability to control them. Modern wars are fought with sanctions and supply chains as much as with soldiers. The West's sanctions on Russia aim to cripple its war machine but also disrupt global supply chains and drive up prices worldwide. The weaponization of energy has fueled inflation and political instability far beyond the battlefield. The US and China are locked in a tech war, with export controls and competing standards splitting the world into rival technological spheres. Nations are racing to develop alternatives to the dollar-based financial system, including central bank digital currencies. China's digital yuan could one day bypass US sanctions entirely. Economic policy and national security are now inseparable. The global economy has become a contested space, another front in the great power rivalry. Every financial move is a strategic calculation. The battlefield is everywhere, from banks to blockchains. The threat of nuclear war, once a relic of the Cold War, has returned. Russia's nuclear threats over Ukraine and NATO's nuclear exercises have revived old fears. The normalization of nuclear rhetoric is dangerously destabilizing. Nuclear powers are modernizing arsenals, developing new delivery systems, and blurring the line between conventional and nuclear war. Arms control treaties are collapsing, leaving the world without guardrails. Tactical nuclear weapons make limited use seem conceivable, but any use risks uncontrollable escalation. The nuclear threshold is lower than ever. Once crossed, there may be no turning back. The fate of civilization hangs in the balance. In our interconnected world, a single spark can ignite a global firestorm. A miscalculation in the South China Sea or a drone strike in the Middle East could trigger mutual defense treaties and draw in nuclear powers. Alliances designed to deter war could instead become transmission belts for global conflict. Modern war would be fought across land, sea, air, space, and cyberspace, where the first shots might be cyber attacks, not bullets. Satellites and infrastructure would be prime targets, crippling economies and militaries alike. Global trade would halt, markets would collapse, and supply chains would break down. Civilians would be on the front lines of economic and cyber warfare. The world built on globalization could unravel overnight. The consequences would be catastrophic and far-reaching. The margin for error is vanishingly small. We stand at a crossroads with the path to war well-trodden and the path to peace narrow but still open. The future is not yet written. Peace requires courage, diplomacy, and a recommitment to international institutions. Citizens must hold leaders accountable and reject the politics of fear and division. We must foster understanding and economic ties that make conflict less likely. The lessons of past wars were paid for in blood. Forgetting them is perilous. The choice between war and peace rests with all of us. Do we have the wisdom and courage to pull back from the brink? This is a time for urgent action and renewed hope. We can choose cooperation and lasting peace for future generations. The choice is ours, now more than ever.